Okay, welcome back. So our beer is fermented and ready to be bottled and or kegged. So I'm just going to go over some of the basic equipment needed in order to bottle or keg your beer and what maybe some of the costs are in order to do that. Alright, first thing you're going to need to bottle your beer is a bottling bucket. Bottling bucket's the same as your fermentation bucket, but it's got a hole in it and a spout that you can turn off and on. And you're going to need some tubing coming off of the spout and a bottling wand. Your bottling wand will just work on gravity, and that will allow you to fill all your bottles like so. So remember that 5 gallons of beer makes a little over 2 cases of bottled beer. So you're going to need at least 2.5 cases of bottles ready when you do your bottling process. The bottles also need to be sanitized and clean. I usually run them through the dishwasher, no soap, high heat through the dishwasher, and that'll usually do the job. Or you could make some cleaning solution and dip all your bottles in there. So it's a little bit of prep work, cleaning all your bottles. Even sometimes I have some fun. I make my own labels for them, and it's a fun process. And that way you can give them out as gifts and easily share them with friends and family and impress everyone with the delicious beer you've made. So in order to carbonate your bottled beer, you're going to take 5 ounces of priming sugar. You're going to dissolve that in about 2 cups of hot water. You're going to pour that into your bottling bucket, and then you're going to siphon transfer your beer from your ale pail to your bottling bucket, and then you are ready to start bottling your beer. Once all your bottles are full, you're going to need a bottle capper and bottle caps. So once your beers are capped and ready, you're going to need to store them for about 2 weeks for them to carbonate. So the beer's got to now sit at, again, between 65 and 70 degrees for at least 2 weeks for that sugar to create carbonation in your bottled beer before you can drink it. So it is a lot of fun. It's a very rewarding process. You can have fun making labels. They sell all kinds of different fun bottle caps you can use, and it's a great way to take your beer on the road, share it, and it'll last. I find it'll last a few months. You can probably let it sit around for 6 months or so. The flavor will start to dissipate over time. I think you'll lose a lot of the hop flavor, will dissipate over time. I guess it just depends on how long it's going to take you to drink 2 cases of beer. On the other side, if you wanted to keg your beer, the process is a bit simpler. You can drink your beer quicker. However, the startup cost might be a little more expensive. You're going to need a keg. This is a 5-gallon corny keg. They're about $130 new. Sometimes you can pick them up used. These are 2.5-gallon kegs, and they're still about $100 to $120 new. You're going to need a CO2 tank and a regulator. Regulator is probably another $50 or $60. And you're going to need a tap. You can just run a tap right off your keg, which is fun to do, or just like a party line like this. This is a pretty cost-effective way to do it. The process is simply, you can directly siphon right out of your fermentation bucket, right into your keg. The entire 5-gallon batch will go right into this keg, seal it up, throw it in the fridge, hook up your CO2, and in about 3 to 4 days, you got carbonated, delicious, fresh draft home brew. You will need a dedicated refrigerator or some kind of kegerator system. I just use a dedicated refrigerator in my basement. I put my tank in there along with my keg, and I'll let the beer chill for maybe a day, and then the next day I'll turn on the gas, and in about 3 to 4 days, the beer is carbonated, ready to go. And I'll show you what that looks like, and we'll take a look at that process a little later. But that's really it. Sometimes I'll do half and half. I'll do 2.5 gallons of kegged beer for myself in the house, and then I'll bottle the other 2.5 gallons of beer to give out and maybe take it on the road or whatnot. So either way, it's fun, rewarding. My beer is ready to go. So let's head back to the kitchen, and we're going to transfer that beer into this keg and get going. Okay, so here's everything you're going to need to keg your beer. Kegging is relatively simple. Before you keg or bottle beer, when it's going to be carbonated, we're going to use our test equipment again to check the final gravity of our fermented beer. If your beer has not reached its proper final gravity, if it's not low enough, when your beer carbonates, it could explode because there's too much sugar in there. So we're going to use our hydrometer, our wine thief, and our test beaker to check the final gravity of our beer to make sure that it is safe to carbonate. As always, we're going to need our one-step cleanser, and I'm going to use my bottling bucket here to make 2 gallons of cleanser. You're going to need a keg. You're going to need a draft system of some kind. I have this wrench here because we're going to need to clean some of the keg parts. As always, cleaning everything is so important to make sure you don't have any bacteria or growth or something that can ruin the taste of your beer. And this is keg lube, which we're going to use to seal and lubricate some of the rubber parts inside the keg, and that helps make a watertight, food grade safe, watertight, airtight seal. And that's really it. Let's get started. All right, so here we are again. I'm gonna get my hot water going. I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of one-step cleanser. Two tablespoons of cleanser. I'm going to let this bucket fill up with 2 gallons of hot or warm water. And I'm going to start throwing everything that needs to be cleaned, all the parts I'm going to start throwing in here. So our wine thief is going to go in. Our draft tube is going to go in. This is the siphon we're going to use, and our siphon tubing is going to go in. Any of our keg parts are going to go in and soak. So I am going to pull apart at least the outside. On these kegs you have an in for your gas and then an out for your beer. So the outside usually gets kind of gunked up with beer. So this tube comes out, these come off. You can even take these apart for even deeper cleaning if you needed. I do make sure that all my gear is clean before I store it, but again, I like to make sure that we're not going to have issues. So there's even some, I'm going to make a separate maybe bucket for some of this stuff, because this stuff does have that keg lube grease on it. So I'm going to just keep these separated, and you also don't want to mix these parts up. So I'm just going to put some sanitizer in a separate bucket and soak these separately. I'm also eventually going to fill these up with sanitizer, shake them up, make sure the insides are cleaned out nice and good before I fill them up. Cleaning, cleaning, cleaning. So I just took some of these parts off a little bowl of sanitizing solution. These are the two outs. This is where the beer is going to flow out, so I want to make sure that those are clean because they're in contact with the beer. These are the O-rings for the top seals. I'm going to let them soak, and then just have to let these tubes soak in the big bucket. Alright, so back over here, I'm going to get some sanitizing solution flowing through my siphon. I want to make sure the inside of that is clean. So I'll just kind of continuously pump this. And that way I'm pumping water through this, not water, I'm pumping sanitizing solution through this tubing. Also the exterior of the tubing is sitting in the water. You can see, right, I got a bucket full of parts here. So I'll just periodically do that. I think I'm going to take some paper towels. I'm going to clean the outside of my siphon. The prep work is probably the least fun part of home brewing, but it's got to be done. That's why I don't think I would ever want to work in a brewery, because I'm sure the entry-level job in a brewery is fucking cleaning. Cleaning like 100-gallon vats of beer and wort and gunk and shit and all kinds of. I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure people enjoy it. Maybe someday. I'll clean off these siphon tubes. Okay, so in order to wash out these kegs, I'll take my siphon tube and I'm going to siphon some sanitizer in there. So here I'm helping to sanitize my siphon system. I'm kind of doing two things at once here. These siphons run on gravity. It just takes a couple pumps to get it started. And you need your collection vessel lower than your. So I'm going to put a half a gallon, maybe a gallon of sanitizer in there, and then shake it up. Quick side note here, what I have here is a 5-gallon glass carboy. This vessel is primarily used for dry hopping, so if I was going to do a dry hop on this beer, you could take an ounce of hops, put them in a muslin bag, put them in this vessel, and then siphon your fermented beer to the carboy. Let that sit for about 10 days and you're going to have beautiful, tasteful, delicious, dry hopped homebrew beer. You can also use this for other additions. I've used hibiscus flower, I've used oak chips, any kind of additional flavoring you want to do after your primary fermentation. You could put in this carboy vessel, transfer your beer, and you can have a lot of fun experimenting with that. I think I've even done like a mango puree in here before. So also you could even transfer your beer to here if you feel your beer needed like another week to clarify or ferment out. Maybe you haven't reached your final gravity. They say maybe letting it sit in a vessel like this off of all the trub here at the bottom. You're going to see there's all kinds of gook here that settles down. So siphoning it off of that to a clear vessel might help it clear out more. It might even improve the clarity and the taste of the beer. There's a lot of debate whether or not that's really purposeful, but that's what you could use one of these for those extra steps and processes. Rock on. Okay, very exciting. We are going to crack open this beer for the first time. We're going to see what it looks like after it's fermented. Now this beer has been sitting, this beer has been fermenting for about 18 days. So here we go. Smells good, smells good. Let me see, let me get you in here. Alright, there's all the dead yeast up top. You can see all the funk around the corners there. At this stage of the process, you do not want to disturb it. You don't want oxygen or bubbles in here. You really want to minimize any oxygen at this point. You're going to see once we siphon this out, you get a nice layer of trub of crap at the bottom here, and that's all of the yeast and sugar and hops and everything that fermented down to the bottom. So you can smell it. It smells nice and clean. It's starting to. It smells like beer. You can even see, some of the clarity in there, perhaps. Well, you'll see once we siphon it out. But all right, so that's what you might get. And again, different yeasts perform differently. So it's not always going to look like this, depending on what type of yeast you're using. Depending on what type of yeast you're using, you might get some different results. But all right, so next step, we're going to take our sanitized wine thief. We're going to take our sample beaker. We're going to get our hydrometer ready. So there's like a little air hole at the top here. So you're basically just sticking this in. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom because there's gunk down in there. Seal off the hole, and that allows you to pick up some samples here. Look at that. You can look at that clarity. I often think this is kind of like maybe even a waste of beer, but now that hydrometer needs to float, and so be careful dropping it in there. You don't want it to smash in the bottom. So there we go. That's floating. You can get rid of this. Our directions said 1.013. Looks to me like we're at right about there, about 1.010. I'm going to write that down, and so it looks like this is ready. So you can start to see even the clarity there, much different than what it looked like before it fermented out. Looks like beer. You can really see that it's got some good color there. It's translucent. I like to give it a little taste test. Tastes like beer. It's good. It's simple. It's clean. I think once that's carbonated, that's going to be good. It's a very low alcohol beer. You can taste that bitterness. It's got a nice caramel color. Got that amber caramel color. I just wanted something easy drinking that I can drink with dinner on the weeknights with my wife. So, all right, cheers. All right, we're ready. We have our cleaned keg, sanitized keg. Some of the internal parts have been cleaned and put back together. Lubricated the inside seals here where necessary. And that's looking nice and clean. We have our sanitized gravity siphon. I always like to keep the lid on this when necessary. We're going to remove the lid. We're going to feed the siphon down. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom. You just kind of want to come, a couple inches maybe from the bottom, because there's all kinds of trub and gunk and sediment down in here that you want to try to minimize getting into your beer. You're going to have some sediment in there. But you also want to minimize bubbling and any oxygen getting in at this point. You're going to have some, but so it just takes a couple pumps to get it going, and that's it. All right. You just want to minimize splashing down in there, and then once it fills up, you know, past the tubing, you know, you're good. You know, it's going to swirl around, and just want to keep an eye on it. From here, I got one of these little clips here that conveniently holds the siphon to the edge, and that's it. Just let that bad boy fill up. So you should see a nice clear color at this point. You shouldn't get a lot of sediment in there. All that's going to drop to the bottom. You can see on the keg here all the crap sticking to the side. And just let gravity do the work. You do want to keep an eye on it. You need to stop the keg just before the CO2 airline. But nice color, good clarity there. Alright, so I'm just going to pull that out to stop it. Let that drain out. You stay there. And alright, these are splitting this into two 2.5 gallon kegs. And that's it, just a couple pumps, get it going. So once you start getting towards the bottom, you want to try to minimize as much scooping out, sucking out a lot of that sediment. So I'm going to have to start tilting it. We also want to try to maximize as much beer as possible. So in a moment here, I'm going to start just tilting the bucket. So I don't know if you can see it in there, what that's looking like. But as you tilt it, you're going to tilt it away from all that crap just to maximize all the beer that you're siphoning out there. Sometimes your siphon will get clogged. It might go slow, but looks like it's working. Every last drop all the time. And anything that you know, if this sediment or something does get in there, it'll just gonna settle to the bottom of your keg anyway. So all right, end of your fermentation is gonna look like. There's all that nice crap down in there that's fermented out. It's dead yeast cells, all the hops, you know, whatever leftover grains. But yeah, everything ferments out, drops to the bottom, and the longer it sits, the more it's going to clear. You want all that stuff to clear out. I don't filter the beer. I don't have any reason to do that. It's another step, more equipment that I've never really found necessary. Anything that did end up in here, you're always going to have maybe a little bit of sediment at the bottom, but if you're good with your siphon system and you don't suck out any of that crap, then you'll be fine. So it still has a nice smell to it, but it's kind of gross to look at it. But I think you can even use this to repopulate your yeast. I think some people actually are able to extract and create a yeast population from this leftover gunk, but I don't really have the time or know how to do that. So, all right, yummy stuff. Let's go carbonate this beer. All right, so here I have my sanitized lid. I'm going to have to take this keg lube, and you're going to want to lube all these rubber gaskets and seals. It just helps create a food grade safe, watertight, airtight seal. So you just get that all lubed up. I'm sure you guys know how to do that. And that goes around that. And that goes in like so. And you want to make sure that this lid is seated properly. Centered and seated. Perfect. Sometimes I'll just give it an upside down test very gently. Alright, make sure I don't hear any air coming out, make sure there's nothing dripping and from anywhere. Alright, here's the second one. Lube that O-ring. Okay, so these kegs are sealed, airtight, watertight. And now it's time to let's head down to the basement. I'll show you the beer fridge, and we're going to hook it up to the CO2. Okay, so this is it here. This is my system. This is just a fridge in my basement. I just removed the shelving. I put the keg in there along with my CO2 tank. I have the gas line hooked up. Turn on the gas, adjust the regulator to 25 psi, and then in about 3 or 4 days the beer will force carbonate with CO2, and then we'll add we'll be able to tap it at that point with our party tap line, give it a taste test. So these kegs do have an in and an outside, and they're actually shaped differently. There's different nozzles, color and size nozzles, so you can't actually mess it up, or if you do, it's really hard to get off, but they're actually marked in and out. So you want to make sure that your gas line is going in and your beer dispensing is coming out. The gas line has a short tube on it. So the beer is filled all the way up to here, and there's just a short tube that is forcing CO2 into the beer to make it carbonate. The outline for the beer extends to the bottom, and that's going to suck the beer out from the bottom. So that's really it. This is just the system I use right now. And it works. Well, I'll come back every day and just check the pressure on the regulator just to make sure it's maintaining the 25 psi that I want. I just find that that's a good pressure and carbonation level for most styles of beer. As the beer absorbs the CO2, it might create an air pocket in there. There's an inch or so of headspace in there, which is going to be filled with CO2. So this obviously is going to be pressurized and carbonated, and you want to make sure that your carbonation level maintains throughout those 3 days. When we are ready to tap it, I will lower the pressure down to about 5 psi or so, maybe 5 to 8 psi for dispensing, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, that's it. Relatively simple system. That's just what I got right now, and so So we'll come back in 3 or 4 days, tap the keg, give it a taste test. Okay, so I finished kegging the beer on Sunday. It is now Thursday night, and we're going to tap the keg, see how we're doing. First thing I'm going to do is lower the regulator down to about 5 psi. You do want to make sure that there is pressure in there, but you only need enough to push it out. The keg is under pressure. If you release this, take my party line tap. There we go. Now at first, there's a lot of pressure in here. It's probably going to be real foamy. So you can release a little bit from your blow-off valve here. And it might take you a few pulls to get the right carbonation level going, or the right levels going on your it's all right, so that's all head at first. You're going to get the first few pulls off the draft. You're going to get a lot of head there, which sometimes ain't a bad thing, you know what I'm saying? But so I'll just go pour that out. So I just poured some of that foam out, and just keep it going. It's looking good. And eventually the carbonation level and the pressure in here will kind of equalize, and you can also adjust the pressure on your regulator if you're getting too much foam. But you do want a good pour. You want good oxygen getting through there with a good head. So you can see that it's looking pretty nice. Let's give it a little taste. Cheers. That's drinkable. Delicious. So, all right, it's just about dinner time. I'm gonna go fill up a couple glasses and enjoy. Alright, so about now I can see that what's coming out of here is kind of normalizing. So, over time the carbonation level might dissipate. You do want to make sure that you keep the pressure up on your regulator. If you see that level dipping down, just turn it till you hear that gas going. You want to keep this headspace pressurized, right? As you drink it, you're going to create more headspace in here. You want to keep that pressurized with CO2. It's going to keep your beer fresher longer and carbonated longer. So, all right. I think over time too, the beer's a little hazy, right? With you get a little chill haze sometimes. So I think as the beer chills for a longer period of time, that should start to go away, that chill haze, and you'll get a much clearer beer. Otherwise, that looks pretty delicious, don't you think? It's got a nice thick head on there. It's nicely carbonated, nice and crisp. Oh yeah. So, all right, hope that's useful, and happy drinking. Thanks for watching. Keep on rocking. Cheers, my friends.